It was 2:13 a.m. when the door creaked open, not quietly, not carefully, just like someone who didn't care if they woke the house. I was awake already, not because of insomnia or anxiety, but because my gut had locked into something dark and shapeless 3 days ago, the minute she told me she had a last-minute business trip to Tampa. She didn't ask. She told. The difference didn't go unnoticed. I didn't go to the door. I didn't pretend to be asleep. I just sat there in the living room, lights off, staring at the glow of the fireplace like it was a doorway to a world where things still made sense. She didn't say anything when she walked in. Her coat slid off her shoulder like it didn't belong to her anymore. Her suitcase thudded against the baseboard. The clink of her car keys hitting the console tray echoed louder than necessary. Still, no words. No, I'm back. No, hey. But I waited. I didn't speak first. Not this time. She came into the living room eventually. Her hair was still styled. Too styled. Her phone buzzed in her coat pocket and she silenced it like a reflex. Then she saw me, sitting still in the dim orange glow, the fire burning low behind me, the room smelling faintly of cedarwood and silence. Her reaction wasn't guilt. It wasn't surprise. She winced, not like someone who got caught, like someone who walked into the wrong house. "You're up," she said, like it was strange, like it was my fault. "Yeah," I replied, barely blinking. "Been up." She hovered in the doorway for a second longer, like she didn't know whether to come in or turn around. And then she saw it. In the fireplace, something blackened, twisted, still burning, edges curling inwards like dead petals. Her face changed, just slightly. Her voice cracked in a way she couldn't disguise. "What is that?" She took a step closer, then froze. It was her red blouse. The one she wore on our anniversary 2 years ago. The one I found this morning in the trunk of her car, crumpled next to a hotel receipt and a bottle of perfume I'd never smelled on her before. And the receipt wasn't for Tampa. It was for Charleston. A suite for 2. 3 nights. 1 king bed. She screamed. Loud. Not like someone scared. Like someone outraged. "What the hell? What the hell is wrong with you? Are you out of your mind?" I stood up slowly. "You left it in the car. You burned my stuff? You brought the lie into the house first." She laughed. Sharp, high-pitched, almost frantic. Like this was a play and I just flubbed my line. "Are you kidding me? You're spying on me now? Digging through my stuff like some paranoid freak?" I didn't dig. I pointed to the fireplace. It was sitting there, wide open, like you wanted it found. She looked away, blinked fast, jaw tight. "You are seriously losing it. I told you I was in Tampa. I called the office." My voice was flat, controlled. "No one knew where you were." The pause after that was thick, tense. Something inside her shifted then. I saw it. Her shoulders squared like someone preparing for battle. Or worse, someone deciding this wasn't worth hiding anymore. "You know what?" she said, almost too calm. "Fine. Believe whatever you want. Dig through my things, burn my clothes, turn into some suspicious man-child who can't deal with reality. I don't care." She walked toward the fireplace like she was going to grab the next piece. I blocked her path. "Don't," I said. "Not unless you're ready to tell the truth." She stared at me, unflinching. Then her mouth curled into something cruel. "You don't want the truth." And maybe she was right. But I wasn't going to let her make this my fault. Not after the months of disappearing weekends. Not after the 3 different passwords she added to her phone. Not after the way she started treating silence like poison when we were in the same room. This wasn't about a blouse. Or a lie. This was about the version of her I married and the stranger who came back in her skin. I didn't know what she was going to say next. But I knew it wouldn't be an apology. And I knew I wasn't going to wait for one. Not anymore. She didn't back down. Didn't flinch. Just stood there staring at me like I'd somehow embarrassed her, like I was the one setting this place on fire with paranoia and theatrics. The flames hissed behind me as another edge of silk collapsed into ash. "You're being dramatic," she said, brushing past me like we hadn't just cracked the last bone in our marriage. "This is crazy. You don't burn someone's clothes because you think they lied about a trip. Do you hear yourself?" "I don't think anything," I said. "I know. Charleston, 3 nights, 1 bed. Do I need to say more? She didn't answer. She didn't need to. She walked over to the kitchen, opened the fridge, pulled out a bottle of wine like she was about to watch a movie. Just another night. Just another argument. Her hands were steady. Too steady. Wow, she finally muttered, unscrewing the cap. You've really lost it. No, I said. But you have. And you didn't even bother to pretend otherwise. You humiliated me. You lied to my face for months. I gave you room. I gave you time. I let you have your space. And all along, you were spending weekends playing house with someone else. Stop. No, you don't get to shut me down this time. You left the house pretending you were flying to a conference. You left your itinerary on the counter sloppy, and your flight wasn't even real. I checked. She turned to face me now, arms crossed, wine untouched. You checked? You're checking flight numbers now? What are you, the FBI? No, just a husband trying to figure out who the hell came back wearing your skin. Silence again. Thick, charged. She finally sat on the bar stool, still watching me like I was a child having a tantrum in a public store. All right, you want the truth? Fine. Here it is. She didn't even pause. She just tossed it out like gum she didn't want to chew anymore. There's someone else. There has been for a while. And guess what? I don't even feel bad about it. You weren't present. You were always somewhere else. You work late. You're tired. You stopped caring. That wasn't just a knife. That was twisting it. Stopped caring. I stepped forward. I rearranged my entire job to be home more. I planned our anniversary. I covered for you when your sister called and you were too busy doing God knows what in someone else's bed. Don't talk to me about not caring. Her face didn't twitch. Her eyes were hollow now, cold. You did all that, she said. But it was too late. I was already gone. And just like that, there it was. No more gaslighting. No more lying. Just a clean shot to the chest. She stood up again, took the wine bottle, and walked toward the hallway. I'll sleep in the guest room, she said. We can figure out what to do tomorrow. Or not. Up to you. I didn't follow. I stayed in that room until the fire was nothing but ember. Not because I didn't have anything to say, but because there was nothing left she'd hear. What she burned wasn't the blouse. It was the last part of me that still believed in her. I didn't sleep. Not even a minute. I just sat there in the half-dead warmth of the fireplace, listening to the house breathe like it was holding its own secrets, and I let the silence become a weight pressing against my ribs. I could hear her upstairs. Not crying. Not pacing. Just living. Like she hadn't just gutted everything we'd built with a few choice words and a shoulder shrug. The guest room door creaked once around 4 a.m., then nothing. Probably checking if I was still here. Probably hoping I wasn't. By morning, the ash had cooled. So had I. But not in the way that meant peace. More like the frost that creeps in after a storm. You don't see it until everything's already frozen over. I made coffee, 1 cup. Used to be 2. She didn't come down. I didn't call her. Instead, I walked into the office, grabbed a small fireproof box I hadn't opened in years. Inside, our marriage license, 2 old passport photos, a folded napkin from the bar where we first met, still stained with the number she gave me. I stared at it longer than I expected. It looked like a note from a stranger now. Then I took out the small USB drive I'd been filling, bit by bit, for the past few weeks. I hadn't even admitted to myself why. Photos, call logs, screenshots, the receipt from Charleston, a copy of the voicemail her phone accidentally left on mine when she didn't hang up fast enough. Just 2 seconds of laughter and some man's voice in the background. Low and too comfortable to be innocent. I hadn't told anyone yet. But this wasn't just happening. This was premeditated betrayal. Planned absences. Lies printed on company letterhead. Around 9:12 a.m., she came down. Hair brushed, leggings, oversized sweater. Her fake casual uniform. She didn't say good morning. Just walked straight to the fridge, poured orange juice into the wine glass from the night before. Classy. She sat at the table like it was any Sunday. Like we were about to talk about grocery lists. I slid the USB drive across the table without a word. She stared at it, one brow lifting slightly. What's this? Everything, I said. Every lie. Every message. Every time you said you were one place and were really somewhere else. She didn't touch it. Didn't even blink. So, she said finally, voice cool. You've been keeping a file on me? I didn't answer that. Wow, she laughed once, humorless. And here I thought I was the villain. You still are, I said. I just finally learned how to read the script. That hit her. Barely. But I saw it. A flicker in her jaw. A twitch in her fingers. She looked at the USB like it was a snake coiled and ready to strike. You planning to do something with that? She asked. I don't need to plan anything, I said. This isn't a strategy. It's a wake-up call. For both of us. Silence. A long one. Then she did something that surprised me. She smiled. Why? Slow. You know what your problem is? She said, swirling her orange juice. You think you're the only one who's hurt. The only one who gets to be angry. You never noticed when I was unhappy. When I was lonely. When I needed more than just your punctuality and your loyalty. You're so busy being the perfect husband. You forgot to be present. I stood up. That's the difference between us, I said. When I was hurting, I stayed. When you were hurting, you opened your legs to someone else. The glass didn't break, but it hit the table hard enough to slosh juice across the wood. And just like that, the final line was drawn. That morning ended without resolution. She didn't cry, didn't beg, didn't even raise her voice again. Just sat there like she was waiting for a meeting to start. She always hated confrontation unless she was controlling it. And now, stripped of her half-truths and practiced indifference, she had nothing left to weaponize but silence. I left the house without saying a word. I didn't take anything, no bag, no plan. I just needed to feel air that didn't carry the stench of her excuses. I drove with no destination, just roads unraveling ahead of me like I was trying to outrun the shape of what my life had turned into. I stopped at a gas station just outside town. Bought a coffee I didn't drink. Stood outside my car watching a stray dog chase its own shadow across the lot. And for some reason, it felt like a mirror. My phone buzzed. Not her. Never her. It was my brother, Tyler. The one person who always knew when something was wrong without asking. I picked up. You good? He asked, voice low like he already knew the answer. No, I said. Not even close. He didn't press. Just told me to come by. Said he'd clear the room in the basement if I needed a place. I hadn't even told him anything, but that's the kind of person he is. And maybe the kind of person I'd stopped being somewhere along the line before lies started dripping into the cracks of my marriage and calcifying into something I couldn't name. When I got back home hours later, she wasn't there. Her car was gone. Her toothbrush too. Drawers open in the bathroom, half emptied. No note. No text. No, we'll talk later. But what was there, what she left, was louder than anything she could have said. She'd taken the painting from the upstairs hallway. The one we bought in Asheville on our second trip together. The only thing in that house that she ever really picked out on her own. Gone. She took her clothes. Her books. The jewelry box I gave her after her first promotion. But not the wedding album. Not the framed photo of us laughing at my sister's wedding. She left behind the story we told the world. She just took her version of it. Around 8 p.m. she texted. Not to say sorry. Not to explain. Just this, I'll come by this week to get the rest. Don't be dramatic. That was it. Not even a period at the end. I stared at the screen for 10 minutes, feeling my throat tighten with something between disbelief and rage. Not heartbreak, no, that happened the moment she admitted everything and didn't even blink. This was something else. The cold burn of realizing you've been downgraded in someone's life from partner to inconvenience. I didn't reply. Instead, I walked into the guest room. The one she'd used the night before like a hotel suite between betrayals. And there it was. A receipt. She never noticed it fell behind the dresser. I picked it up. It was from a boutique in Charleston. Date matched the second night of her conference. 2 items listed. A dress. And a tie. Not mine. Size confirmed it. She was dressing him. and something in me snapped, not in a dramatic, angry way. Not even violently, just clean, silent, like the last thread in a rope fraying until nothing's left to hold. I sat on the edge of the bed and realized this was no longer a relationship to fix or save. It was evidence of a version of her I never really knew. I didn't sleep again. 2 nights in a row. My body was tired, but my brain had become a projector stuck on loop, playing every lie, every look, every moment I dismissed as stress, routine, bad timing. It all looked different now, viewed through the lens of hindsight sharpened by betrayal. By morning, I was empty, not in a poetic way, just hollow. There's a kind of silence that sets in when you realize the person you built your life with was actively chiseling a secret escape route the entire time. It's not loud. It's not violent. It's just a slow, sickening ache. I spent that morning in the garage, not even working on anything. Just sitting on the floor between my shelves of tools and forgotten projects, listening to the radio hum static. I kept thinking about the tie. That damn tie. She bought him a tie. That's not something casual. That's not something you do for a fling or a one-night mistake. That's care. That's intent. It rewrote everything. Every month she claimed she was staying late. Every conference. Every girls' night that didn't need photos. And then the knock came. Sharp. Fast. Like whoever was on the other side didn't have the patience to wait. I opened the door half expecting it to be her. Another speech. Another gaslight. But it wasn't. It was her sister, Megan. She looked at me like she'd just found out someone died. Pale, eyes wide, holding her phone like it was radioactive. "Can I come in?" she asked. No pleasantries. No small talk. I nodded and stepped aside. She walked in like the air was heavier than it should be. She didn't sit. She just turned her phone around and showed me the screen. "I didn't know," she said. "I swear I didn't know until this morning." The screen showed a post. Not private. Not even subtle. A photo of her, my wife, and some guy I'd never seen wrapped around each other on a boat. Champagne. Sunglasses. Captions full of inside jokes and fake vulnerability. But the worst part wasn't the image. It was the date. It was from 2 months ago. 2 months ago, she told me she had the flu. She didn't want me to catch it. Slept at her friend's place for 4 days. I dropped off soup on her porch. She never answered the door. Megan looked sick. "I thought she was just being distant," she whispered. "I thought it was work stress." I didn't even know she knew this guy. His name's Grant. He's married. Or was. I couldn't speak. All I could do was stare at that photo, wondering how someone could smile so genuinely in the middle of such a deep lie. "She told me you two were in counseling," Megan said. "That you were the one pulling away. That she was trying. But you weren't responsive." I finally looked at her. "She said that." She nodded, guilty. I believed her. I didn't want to take sides. "But I should have asked you." I laughed. Not because it was funny. Because it was absurd. She hadn't just lied to me. She'd built an entire alternate version of our marriage and sold it to her own family. And they bought it. I thanked Megan. Told her it wasn't her fault. That people believe what they want to believe. But inside, something darker was settling. It wasn't just betrayal anymore. It was character assassination. She hadn't just checked out of the marriage. She'd rewritten the story. Erased the good. Painted me as the villain. And now, even her own blood was questioning what they thought they knew. This wasn't just a break. It wasn't just a fall. This was war.by the next morning. It wasn't about heartbreak anymore. I wasn't waking up crushed by grief or asking myself why. That part of me had burned out somewhere between the fireplace and the boat photo. Now it was something sharper. Not revenge. Not rage. Just a need for truth. Clarity. I wasn't going to be the footnote in someone else's revisionist history. I wasn't going to let her walk out of this house carrying only the lies that made her look like the brave one, the victim of a cold, distracted husband who drove her into someone else's arms. She'd made me the villain in her story. Fine. I'd show her who she was in mine. I called a lawyer. Not for drama. For documentation. Quiet, methodical steps. I had all the proof I needed. She could deny the emotional part all she wanted, but the facts were airtight. Financial records. Call logs. Hotel receipts. That one photo of her wearing a ring that wasn't hers and a smile that didn't belong to our life. The attorney listened. Took notes. Didn't flinch. She'd seen this before, I could tell. But at one point, she looked up from her notepad and asked, "Do you still want to try counseling?" That's when I laughed. Honestly laughed. "No," I said. "We're past repairing the structure. I just want to stop the leak before it floods someone else's life." She nodded. "Understood. Do you want to serve papers?" "Not yet," I said. "She's coming back tomorrow to get the rest of her things. And I wanted her to see what she'd broken. I wanted her to step into the truth, bare and ugly, no more smoke and mirrors." So I spent the night preparing. Not for a confrontation. For a presentation. I printed the receipts. Laid them out on the dining table. Chronological order. Labeled. I pulled the screenshot of her booking the hotel suite under a fake name and laid that on top. I framed the photo from the boat, her in that white dress I'd never seen, kissing someone who clearly thought this was all a fairy tale. Then, in the center of the table, I placed a copy of our wedding vows. Hers. She didn't know I kept them. The door opened at 11:27 a.m. the next day. She didn't knock. Just strolled in with her sunglasses on and a smug energy like she was doing me a favor by stepping into this house one last time. I didn't greet her. She looked around, clocked the dining table, froze mid-step. "What is this?" she asked, eyes narrowing. "Truth," I said. "The kind you've been allergic to lately." She walked slowly toward the table like something dangerous was sitting there. Picked up one paper. Then another. And then the photo. "You're out of your mind," she whispered. "No," I said, stepping closer. "I'm just no longer under your spell. You don't get to rewrite this story to make yourself the hero." "I never lied about being unhappy," she snapped. "You lied about everything else." We stood there in silence. Her eyes never quite meeting mine. She set the photo down face down. Couldn't even look at it. "I hope it was worth it," I said. "All of it. The lies. The sneaking around. Dressing him like your husband while I was home holding this house together. I hope he makes you feel whatever it is you think I stopped giving you." She opened her mouth to speak, then stopped. And then, for the first time, I saw it. Guilt. But not for what she did. For getting caught. "I didn't think you'd react like this," she said quietly. "You didn't think I'd react at all," I replied. "That's how far gone you were." She looked around the room one last time. At the walls we painted together. The lamp she insisted on. The rug we argued about for a week. Then she said the coldest thing I've ever heard. "None of this ever felt like home." And she walked out. Didn't take the rest of her things. Didn't even look back. The moment the door closed behind her, it was like the oxygen in the room changed. I didn't feel relief. I didn't feel power. I felt still. Like the silence had teeth now and it was finally sinking in. Not because she left, but because she meant it. None of this ever felt like home. I stood there in the middle of the house we built together, her photos still on the walls, her scent still clinging to the throw blanket, the vase she bought during our Napa trip still perched on the mantel. And for the first time, I realized she'd probably never truly been in this marriage. Not fully. Not the way I had. She had played the part, said the words, smiled in the pictures. But she had always been one step out the door, looking for a version of herself that didn't exist inside our walls. I sat down at the dining table again, looked at her vows, her handwriting curved and careful, written in purple ink. I read the words out loud just once. "You make me feel like I can stop searching." That line hit differently now, like a sick joke she'd written for a performance we both thought was real. I left it all there. The papers, the photos. I didn't pack them away. I didn't throw them out. Let them sit. Let the truth live here even if she didn't. And then, hours later, just when I thought the worst of it had passed, my phone buzzed again. It was her. Not a call. Just a message. One line, "Grant's wife found out. She threw him out." No context. No emotion. Just a cold update like she was texting me about the weather. I stared at the screen, unsure whether to laugh or scream. After all of it, after everything, she still thought I needed to know that her mess had caught up with her. I didn't reply. But 10 minutes later, another one came. "He's staying at a hotel. I don't know what's going to happen." And that's when it hit me. She wasn't telling me because she thought I cared. She was testing the waters, seeing if there was still a soft place to land. She thought maybe, after the dust settled, I'd still be here. Still the stable one. Still the one who wouldn't leave. She didn't want me. But she didn't want to lose me either. The safety net. The backup. The one who'd take her back once the fantasy crumbled. I finally typed 3 words. Simple. Final. Not my problem. Then I blocked the number. Not in anger, but in absolute clarity. She burned the bridge. She danced in the ashes. And now she wanted shelter from a fire she started. She could freeze. The days after that moved in strange, uneven rhythms. There was no single moment of clarity, no sunrise epiphany where everything suddenly felt okay. It wasn't healing. It was reconstruction. Piece by piece, moment by moment, learning how to live without waiting for someone who was never really coming back. The house felt bigger now. Not in a freeing way. In a way that echoed. Every room had a ghost of her, not haunting me in the romantic sense, but in the mundane sense. I'd walk into the bathroom and see her favorite lotion still half full. Open the fridge and find her almond milk untouched. There were socks under the bed that didn't belong to me. I didn't throw anything away yet. I wasn't sentimental. I just wanted to remember. I didn't want to trick myself later into thinking it hadn't been that bad. I wanted the evidence. The proof that I wasn't overreacting, that I hadn't lost my mind. And then came the knock. Not her. Him. Grant. I didn't recognize him at first. He looked nothing like the man in the boat photo. He was thinner, face drawn, eyes sunken like he hadn't slept in weeks. I opened the door but didn't say a word. He didn't either. He just stood there, holding a small box in his hands like it was made of glass. I shouldn't be here, he finally said. But I thought you should have this. He handed me the box. I didn't take it. I don't want anything from either of you. It's not from her, he said quickly. It's from me. I didn't know she was married. Not at first. I stared at him. He looked pathetic. Not in a theatrical way. Just exposed. She told me she was separated. Said it was complicated. That you were controlling. Cold. Said she was only staying because of the house, the finances, legal stuff. I believed her. I wanted to believe her. I stayed silent. I found out the truth after that second trip. I saw your photo on her phone. A lock screen. I asked her. She said it was old. That you were just a friend helping with the house. He paused, swallowing something thick and invisible. I didn't leave right away. I should have. But by then I was in too deep. My marriage was already hanging by a thread. She convinced me we were better off starting something new. I let out a breath I didn't know I was holding. Why are you telling me this now? Because, he said, eyes meeting mine, I lost everything. And I still think you lost more. I finally looked at the box. Took it. Inside was a necklace. Simple. Silver. I'd seen it before. I bought it for her on our 5th anniversary. She told me she lost it in the necklace sat in my palm like it had a heartbeat. Small, silver, unassuming, yet somehow heavier than anything I'd held in months. I remembered buying it. Remembered the exact expression on her face when I gave it to her. That wide-eyed, breathless kind of surprise women practice in mirrors, but she always wore convincingly. She said it was perfect. Said she'd never take it off. But then she did. And not just took it off, gave it away. Handed it to another man. Carried it with her on stolen weekends like some sentimental talisman from a life she pretended to hate. I didn't thank Grant. I didn't curse him either. I think he wanted one or the other. He just stood there awkwardly, hands stuffed in his jacket like he didn't know what else to do with himself. I'm not here to apologize, he said finally. There's no excuse. I didn't want you to think I was part of some plan. She used me too. Maybe not the same way. But it wasn't real. Not the way I thought. I looked him in the eye. You don't get to rewrite it either. You stayed. You knew eventually. And you chose to keep going. He nodded slowly. I did. He turned to leave, then stopped. You probably don't care, but she called me last night. Said she might want to come back. To you. I didn't react. She doesn't know I came here, he added. Just figured you should know who she is when she shows up pretending she forgot. I shut the door. Not fast. Just final. And I stood there for a long time staring at that necklace. All the memories it represented now felt staged. Every dinner. Every kiss on the neck when she wore it. Every compliment she gave me for it, knowing her taste. She gave it to another man and let him believe she was his. While still sleeping in my bed. Still calling me her rock. It wasn't the necklace that broke me. It was what it stood for. The comfort of knowing her. The illusion of that comfort. The idea that even after the worst of our fights, there were still these touchstones, gifts, moments, shared things that meant something, that grounded us. But she'd turned it all into currency, used it to buy her way into someone else's arms. That night, I packed every photo, every anniversary card, every gift I ever gave her that still lingered in drawers and corners like a ghost that wouldn't leave. I boxed it all, not out of spite but clarity. She might return. She might text, call, show up with that same twisted smile and ask if we could talk. But she wasn't walking back into my life. She was walking into a house that had already buried her memory. She came back the next day, just like he said she would. No warning, no text, just the sound of tires on gravel and the faint creak of the gate she never once remembered to oil. I didn't open the door right away. I watched her through the front window. She stood there in that same casual pose, arms folded, one hip slightly cocked, like she was bracing for a mild argument instead of the funeral of everything we'd ever built. I opened the door. She smiled. That smile. The one that used to mean something. The one she used like a scalpel, precise, soft, disarming. "Can we talk?" she asked. I stepped aside. Let her in. Not because I wanted to hear her out, but because I wanted her to see it. The living room was clean, empty in the places that mattered. Photos gone. Drawers cleared. The house had stopped telling our story. She noticed. Her eyes flicked around the room like she was trying to spot something missing but couldn't name it. "I know I messed up," she said softly, like this was a scene in a romance movie. "I know I made choices I can't take back. But I think part of me was just scared. Lost. I felt alone for so long, and I didn't know how to say it without hurting you. I didn't move. Didn't blink. Grant was a mistake," she continued, voice trembling just enough to feel rehearsed. "I don't want that life. It wasn't real. This was always real." She stepped forward. I didn't. "I want to fix things," she said. "We can go to therapy. I'll do whatever it takes. Just don't let this be the end." I held up the box. The one filled with the remnants, photos, cards, receipts, the necklace, her vows, the pieces of a life she dismembered with a smile. "Take it," I said. She froze. "What is it?" "Everything you left behind. Everything you gave away the second you lied and didn't flinch. I want you to have it. So you remember exactly what you destroyed when you tell people how it just didn't work out." She stared at it like it was on fire. "I can't." "You already did." I set the box on the table and stepped back. She looked at me like she didn't recognize me. And maybe she didn't. She never bothered to know this version of me. The one who wouldn't beg, wouldn't chase, wouldn't hold on to a woman who measured love in what she could get away with. Her eyes glassed over. Not a single tear fell. But it was the closest she'd come to human in weeks. "I didn't mean to hurt you," she whispered. I nodded. "But you did. Over and over. And then you came back like it was a misunderstanding instead of a demolition." Silence. She finally reached for the box, hesitated, then took it. Held it against her chest like a wound. "I'm sorry," she said. I didn't answer. She left. Again. But this time, the door closed like punctuation. A full stop. And when the gate creaked behind her again, I didn't feel hollow. I didn't feel rage. I felt done. And that was the first real feeling I'd had in months that didn't come with a sharp edge. So here's my advice to anyone still reading: if you have to chase someone for honesty, for basic decency, for truth, they're not your person. If someone tells you they were lost, but they had the clarity to pack overnight bags, delete messages, and lie with perfect posture, they weren't confused. They were calculating. Don't romanticize someone who wouldn't bleed for you, but gladly watched you bleed alone. Let them leave. And when they try to come back, don't open the door. Let it be the last one they ever knock on.